Hi, I decided to make this video in response to a thread on the Model Railroad Hobbyist forum about the capabilities of DCC, Digital Command Control. I thought that I may have to show you a few things because I'm a European modeler. I live in Hungary, Budapest, which is in Europe, and I model a European prototype and I model in a small flat, so many things are going to be different from what you're used to in the United States. Even if you have a basement empire or if you have just a small switching layout, things here are going to be rather different. And the most different thing is my DCC system, because I'm using the Roco Z21 command station and many of its capabilities are lesser known on the other side of the pond. So I want to show you what I do. I'm certainly not going to cover everything DCC can do, but I would like to cover at least a few things that I do here and I think you may find interesting. So here's my Z21 command station. Sorry about the cable management. It's a work in progress, so the fixers are not fully applied yet. I'm waiting for every cable and wire to be placed before I fix everything to the bottom side of my layout. So the Z21 looks quite ordinary as a command station. Here is this black brick. On the back side there are numerous ports. You can connect ExpressNet, which is the LAN's Roco line of accessories, LocoNet, so any Digitrax throttles or maybe your favorite UWTs, and of course there are ports for boosters, track occupancy detection, and there is an output for the main line and for the programming track. Now I've realized that this programming track works a little bit different than what you're used to, because normally the programming track is connected by a relay to the main track output of the Z21, which means that I can actually control anything which is on the programming track just like if it was on the main track, except when I go into programming mode, when the relay snaps it off and a separate set of commands is sent to the programming track itself. I find it useful because this way I can immediately test any functionality I want to test without moving things back from the programming track to the main line. And it also means that integrating the prog track into the layout, if one wants to do that. I didn't want to, but there are folks out there that prefer that thing. So this integration is rather seamless, and you don't need additional switches. Nothing has to be done. Once you turn into programming, the rest of the layout shuts down and you can focus on programming that one locomotive on the prog track. The other interesting thing you can see here is the Wi-Fi module, which is a standard TP-Link router. That means that you can connect any kind of router to it, and that's going to provide the VLAN connection for your VLAN throttles, which could be the VLAN mouse manufactured by Roco, or applications that are compatible with the Z21 LAN protocol. This is open source, so that means that you can create your own application if you wanted to, and there are several applications out there that support it, and actually they are endorsed by Roco, so they are referenced on the Roco website. So that means that there is this community building involved with the production of this command system. And there are other manufacturers that use the Z21 LAN protocol, like Digitools used to and Yammer does currently. Because of that, there are a few functionalities that you have to pay for if you want to use the application. Most of the thing is still free, but with a real Roco command station, obviously, all the capabilities of the application are going to be free for you. Now you can connect this thing to the internet. You just have to tweak a few things in the router and set the IP address of the Z21 according to your own network's IP address policies. I don't do that because of security reasons, but many people actually do that, and this way the internet is available on their phone while they are running the trains or programming the trains, and this way they can easily look up the manual of a decoder or any other module. So it could come in handy. I don't want to do that, but it's a possibility. And of course, if there is anything wrong with the router, or there are, I live in a block of flats, so there are many Wi-Fis out there. If there's a Wi-Fi conflict, I can always upgrade to a better router, and when the layout is running, just dominate the area with a stronger signal. So here's the Z21 application. This is the steering view. Obviously this is the most used part of the application, and on a tablet it can have two different locomotives steered in one screen. Obviously on a smartphone you will have just one of them. You can customize it a lot, so you can have different color schemes, you can set up the gauge, the throttle control to be on the right hand side or left hand side to suit your preferred hand. And well, the most important feature is that you can switch between your locomotives using this carousel. So if I want another locomotive, I just pick its picture and it shows me a name that I can customize and its address number. Not that it's important, address numbers are only used when programming and other advanced activities, but you can just give it into a hand of a child and they are going to understand what to do with it. Now my tablet is fixed to the fascia of, the valance of my layout. So instead of controlling the trains, usually I control the turnouts and the signals from there. But I've seen many people attach multiple tablets to the sides of their layouts and control the trains from them, because this way they are bigger. And of course, if you have multiple ovals, you know, these rounded style layouts are quite popular in Europe. I don't really like them, so my layout is a point-to-point, but it's relevant because these systems are designed for these roundies as well. There you can control 5 concentric ovals with just 3 devices this way. And of course you can switch between the trains, so if you just want to start the trains, you can have just one throttle control many of the trains. You can change the order how the trains are displayed, and there are options for cars, for example. So I have passenger cars with interior lighting, and that means that I can turn the lights on and off car by car, because they have decoders built into them as well. So this picking up thing is very simple. You can also see that I have the functions let out, and it's different for the 2 locomotives because they have different chips. This is a Hungarian prototype locomotive with a Hungarian decoder in it, and it has different sound capabilities than this Czechoslovakian prototype locomotive, which I use with címmel decoder, which is German, but with a Czech sound project on it. And well, as you can see, the Hungarian prototype turns the sound on with function number 1, and the Czechoslovakian turns sound on the sound of the prime mover on with function number 8. And there is a way to reset all the sounds, all the functions, but it's a lot easier to just put them out with symbols over here. It doesn't matter which function number it is. If I press this button, then this locomotive's prime move turns on, and if I push this button, then this locomotive's prime move turns on. And I don't have to care about the actual function numbers. You can see that releasing the coupler is sound 18 on the Czech sound project and sound 15 on the Hungarian sound project. Even their order is inverted, so releasing and coupling, and here coupling and releasing. Doesn't matter, I just have a look at the symbols and there I go. And it means that I can use multiple of the tabs for functions. So I have a lot of functions available, like various horns, like long horn, shorter one, just a whistle. When running I can have squeaking on turnouts and in curves, uncoupling, conductor's whistle, turtle mode for shunting, changing of the RPM of the prime mover without actually accelerating the locomotive, fans, generator for preheating cars, so the prime mover's number of revolutions per minute has to be increased for the electric heating to be efficient, and I can simulate it with this button. I can add rail joiner sound, the thudding as the train is moving over rail joiners, sanding. I actually have multiple station announcements. These are authentic Hungarian sounds, so they are correct to the era, are recorded with the same actor who recorded the original announcements. Turn tail lights off, turn the cab light on, and it doesn't matter how they are arranged in the different with the different locomotives. They are going to work, and that's the most important for me. So here's a Roco locomotive, completely different things. A lot different horn as well, somewhat fewer controls. I have actually purchased a sound project for it from the same Czech guy that made my other sound project, so I'm about to upload it onto the chip. It's a very nice thing. So this is the original Roco sound. This is a Roco locomotive which is sound equipped, and it actually sounds good, so it's alright, but with another locomotive of mine it didn't really sound well, so I was definitely looking out for a replacement sound. And basically I just sent an email to the guy who makes the sound projects and tell them some of the CVs that identify the decoders themselves, and then in response to that he sends me the code to unlock any sound project I want to. So I can just download any sound project and install any of them and try all of them out until I find the one that suits me the best. And for example, with one of my locomotives that I wanted to upgrade with the sound, Jacek Sound Projects has more than 20 different locomotives of the same class recorded, and it's just brilliant. All of them sound a little bit different, so I already have 2 such locomotives, different paint schemes but the same class, and I can make them sound just a little bit different so that it doesn't become boring. I just love how I can toy around with the sound projects on my locomotives, and the Z21 has a built-in capability of uploading these sound projects. So I just connect a notebook, turn on this Z21 Maintenance Tool, which is a program to upgrade the firmware, upload sounds, change CVs. So it's quite similar to JMRI Decoder Pro and a bunch of other software bundled together, and it uploads the sound on the programming track in like 40 minutes. It takes a long time, but there are many sounds in there, and I can do it anytime, as many times as I want to, because the sound projects are unlocked by the decoder itself. So if I've bought a decoder and bought a code for that decoder, I can unlock any of the sound projects, which is very generous, and the sound projects are really of a high quality. So I can go very prototypical, and I love that. But I usually use my tablet to set the turnouts and signals. So I have this CTC panel up here. It's designed to resemble a German SPDR60 CTC board, and well, this one is a test bed for my signals, and I can hide these second heads because actually the signals should only have one head in here. So this is the set route for the train. You can see that there are cars stored on this track. It's a very small station I have here, and here are some sidings with loading areas. And basically my layout is extremely small. So there's a staging yard, it's out on the corridor just by my entrance door. The station that I model, there is an industrial park on the other side of this part, and behind me there is another town with a smaller station, and after that there is going to be another staging yard. It's not completed yet, so that's the next section I'm about to build. And basically I can set any of the turnouts just by tapping them. I'm not sure if you've heard it, I use servos and those are not very loud. There are some of them that are a little bit louder. There's a small one that I have up here because of a cross beam, so I had to use a different kind of. So this is somewhat louder. Definitely heard that. And I can change the signals just by tapping them as well. But actually, my favorite part is these route control buttons. So when I want to build a route, okay, put it back that way. I want to build a route, for example, a train entering from this direction onto track 3. I just select track 3, hit the enter direction, and it automatically sets up all the turnouts and signals. And as you can see, it also set the turnout, this double slip over there, so that it doesn't endanger the oncoming traffic. Turned every other signal red to stop other traffic. So I can set a lot of things there, and it's just a single tap. If I want to, down here I have routes for trains passing through the station. So for example, if I set a route through track 2 from this direction, it's north for me, it cancels the previous route, turns the signal back to red, resets the turnouts, keeps a sequence, so the CTC is going to set turnouts one by one, not at the same time, and set the signals accordingly. I'm going to show you that as well later on. So I love these routes, and setting them up is quite simple actually. So you just come to the control station, and for example, this previous route I have showed, first it turns all of these signals to red, and then sets the turnouts, and that's how it does. Here is the delay between the given actions, and it's great. If you just have to tap all the turnouts and signals you want included in the route, and if you want a different direction, you just tap it once, and that changes how it looks. Of course, I'm not going to save it now, so it's very simple to do that. I come back. So normally what I do is that I maximize the size of it, and then find a zoom where all my route controls are just visible, and lock that for the operating session. And this is how I operate my layout. I have the same program on my smartphone, so now standing outside on the corridor near the staging yard, I can have my phone in my hand and give the same commands using the CTC device. And I'm going to set an entrance to track 2. That's over thrown turnouts. That's why there are 2 lights. In the Hungarian system, 2 lights means reduced speed, and yellow on top means the next signal is a stop signal. Now if I set it to pass on track 2, then first of course the turnouts are going to be set on the other side of the station accordingly, and then these blinking yellow lights are going to show that the next signal is displaying 2 lights as well for reduced speed. Now, if I set this signal red again, I can reset everything for track 3, which is across normal turnouts. And the signal green is going to show that you can go full speed, and the next signal shows full speed as well. Now just select the other tab in my application to pick a train, and of course select the correct track on the staging yard. And this train is going to actually just enter track 3. I know you want to see some train action, so I'm departing now. And I have JMRI set up in a way that once the next detection block is ran by the train, it automatically sets the signal back to red. And you can hear the train stopping at the station. So here you can see my station. I'm currently in the process of ballasting the entire layout. It's going to take some time. And in the meantime, I'm still doing operating sessions. So everything is laid out for this train to depart, and the conductor is going to blow his whistle. And here we go. So we are under my industrial park area. This was the first section I built. Actually, this whole layout is just for me to learn and study techniques, because I built my last layout more than 20 years ago, and since then technology, thank God, has improved a lot. Basically, my industrial park is just an Inglenook, and this is what I built first because I wanted to do operations, and later on I expanded to the station, to the staging yard, so that I can run trains as well. But the industrial sidings and everything was more important to me, that's why I started here. As you may have seen, I'm using car cart and waybills for cargo distribution, which is not something that people usually do in Europe. There is Fremo, which does huge module events with car carts and waybills, but these are not the American car style sleek car cars, but huge car cars that resemble real waybills from real trains, and they are one-in-one sized for real trains. That's very inconvenient. But people at home usually don't do that around here. This is an American aspect of the modeling I do, because I love operations and I'm aiming to do some American operations as well, and I try to adopt as much of the operations to my layout as possible. Now, I also Europeanized a few things to better fit my layout, and I use the Hungarian railroad code for operating instead of obviously track warrant control or timetable and train order operations. Now the servos are great because they have a standardized connection that I can use a cable to just, they have a cable coming out from them, and I attach them to the servo decoder. My servo decoder can have 4 turnouts. This one is built by a Hungarian company called Digitools, and it's like $30 each, but the Servo is like $3, so altogether I'm still coming out much cheaper than any of the typical switch machines. And I have digital control, so I can use my CTC to change the turnouts. It's quite smooth, and one thing I love about servos is that I can use a software to set the left and right hand side of the throw. I don't have to carefully place the servos themselves. I can reset it with software. So what I basically do is that I drill the hole to push the wire through and attach the servo to the bottom of my layout using double-sided tape. I use this red 3M gel-like thing that has the mesh in it. Only that one works for me. These servos have been here for 4 years now and nothing has happened to them, no adjusting needed. And even if there was some adjusting needed, I can do it from software. I don't have to drill holes, use any kind of additional tools. I just stick them to the bottom of the layout, stick the wire across the turnout itself, plug it into the servo decoder, a few tweaks of CVs, or if you want to, you can use these decoders without DCC actually. You can use the buttons on them to set them up, to program them. And it's very simple, really. And an interesting thing is that here I have also built a local control panel. So I use the output lights coming from the servo decoder to show the state of the turnouts on this local control panel. And also I use JMRI for setting the turnouts, so the buttons are set into detector circuits, and when the buttons are pushed, the logics part of JMRI is going to change the turnouts for me. So here's my local control panel. This is automation here, but not the kind of automation that Europe is famous for. I don't like that. I don't like automated train running. I want to run my trains. So from that point of view, my layout is very American. And many people say that European DCC systems are only designed in mind of automation. Z21 definitely isn't. I mean, this is born for operations. It has all the capabilities that you would need and more. Now, with my little control panel over here, I have the 3 buttons. JMRI is doing the logic behind it, and there's this little key. The operators have to take the key from the traffic controller in order to be able to change the turnouts locally. Without the key inserted, the buttons are dead even when JMRI is running. So we can simply push a button, or another button, or another button. And actually the DCC commands go out, and I see on the CTC panel these changes of turnouts reflected, and that's a very neat feature. Next to it you can see the mock-up of my fast clock. I use an Arduino Nano to program that, and it displays a few colors, one for drawing event cards, and a few other colors for using with car cards. So my car cards have these little colored edges, blue, green, yellow and red, and whenever that color turns up on the fast clock, then those cars with those car cards are finished loading or unloading at the siding they are being spotted. So that adds a little bit of additional operational interest to this whole layout. One critique that using mobile apps as throttles often get is that you have to keep a constant look on the app in order to be able to control your trains. Now, I've been using the Z21 app for 4 years now, Actually, because of that myth, I have bought a physical throttle and I've barely used it. I don't really need that. So I'm going to show you a very quick operating session on my new part in the industrial park area to show you how using an app is simple and how I can make lots of sounds come out from the locomotive during that. So let's fire the engine up. And let us move into position. You will see that there is a caboose connected to the front of the train because we are going to use sidings with facing point turnouts, and for the long shaft we are going to use a caboose. Now in Czechoslovakia, caboose are still used even nowadays, but they don't have to be at the end of the train, they can be anywhere. But for this move, it's best if it's at the front of the train, so that's what we are going to model here. When the locomotive is working at the back of the train and there is no cab control car at the front, then train movement is limited to 40 km/h, so we're going to be fairly slow here. So this is where we stop. Now one of the brakemen are going to be traveling in the cab of the locomotive and get to the local control and put the key in and start controlling the turnouts. Meanwhile, the conductor and the other brakemen in the caboose are going to start disconnecting the caboose from the train. So we disconnect the caboose. The caboose is a kit, so it has a few problems. It's not as simple to operate as factory-made cars. And now these two chemical cars are going to come here to track A. We are going to take these two covered cars from track B and replace them with these two covered cars over there. So this is a fiberboard factory, so the chemicals will be glue and melanin for covering the fiberboard, lots of things. You can start pushing, so I'm blowing the whistle. Okay, so the two tankers are in their place. and change the load on the engine, since we are now all using two empty cars. The two loaded ones have been left behind, so the engine shouldn't go that hard. Bang! Okay, this car is an old socialist one, has a few problems with its coupler, but now we coupled it. I'm filling up the air tanks of the cars. Now that we are ready with that, we can pull the whole stretch from siding B. So we're pushing the two smaller axle cars down to the caboose. They are coupled. We uncouple those two cars and then couple the cars back to the caboose. And we are moving forward already. Let's speed up the wheels a little bit from this point on. Uncoupling, it doesn't very much work here. My local shoved on to the next station to get out of the way of other trains. You can see that it has now two freight cars and a caboose attached, and I've updated the car cards. So these are the cards of the two cars that we picked up at the Fiberboard factory. And as you can see, there are two cars here, but we are not going to be able to pull them because they are still being loaded. Oh no, this one has finished loading because these two ones have finished loading, sorry, because the blue light has appeared on my fast clock. So now we are actually going to be able to make a few pulls. I'm not going to show you that because this is about DCC and not about my operations. It's just one interesting part that may give a few ideas for you as well. So this is what my servo decoder looks like. Here is the 3 connectors for DCC. Actually there are 3 connectors because what you can do is that you can connect your DCC system over here, and you can connect a separate power supply, AC or DC 21 volts max over here, and a separate DCC system over here for frog polarizing. Or you can just connect one DCC system here, and then it takes the power from the DCC and the frog polarizing from the DCC. As you wish, you can remove these jumpers to separate the circuits. So I only use my own DCC system that gives me enough power. The Z21 can do 3 amps, and even with this many sound locomotives on the layout and several Digi-servos and Digi-signals for signal control, I don't have any issues with amperage. So I'm not going to build a separate power supply line for my decoders, but it's a possibility. Another possibility you can do, and it's especially useful with modules, is that you can use the module's own DCC for powering the frogs, the intermodule system's DCC system for powering the frogs, and a separate DCC system for actually controlling the turnouts, thereby setting up your own CTC with using the DCC for your module only. Now, over here are the outputs for the LEDs, lights, whatever, that show you the state of the turnouts. Here are the outputs for the 4 zeros for the frogs, so 1 for each frog. These are the connectors for the standard servo connection, and these buttons can be used to manually control the turnouts themselves, or you can solder to these soldering points and use your own switches on the fascia or on a separate control panel. And these are the relays that change the frog polarities. I used separate buttons and JMRI for my control panel because this way my CTC and the entire DCC system is aware of the changes of the state of the turnouts. If you use these buttons, those are going to be changing the state of the turnouts internally, so it's not going to be reflected by the CTC board. That's a minor downside for me, but JMRI helped me out, and it was super simple to set it up with Logix. So the Z21 has a in-command station consisting mode where you can just put 2 or many other locomotives together in a single train and control them together from the app. Of course, it clogs up the DCC system a little bit, so it's not advisable when the locomotives are running together all the time. There you will have to use other kinds of consisting, but for locomotives that only run together occasionally, this is great because you can make up any pairs and you can just pick them like you would pick a single locomotive. You don't have to tamper with CVs. Now these 2 locomotives I picked have the same kind of decoder, a very similar mechanism and very similar sound projects, so they should work together quite nicely. I've also programmed them to the same CVs, so acceleration delay, deceleration delay, etc. This is quite good. Now the best thing is that actually when setting up vehicles you can set up some traction data. So this is for another locomotive, I don't really use it anymore. What you do is that you take different regulation steps and measure how long it takes to cover the same distance in that regulation step. And that's going to be used by the command station to determine what regulation step to send to each locomotive. And this way, if I have set traction up with this locomotive and many others, I can actually pair any two locomotives together and they are going to be speed matched, because for a given speed in kilometers per hour they are going to get different commands. The commands that gives them the same speed. And therefore, once I record all the traction data, I'm about to do that, so it's going to take a lot of time to set it up. But once I've set that up for all locomotives, I can use any combination of those locomotives to run together, and whenever I buy a new locomotive, I just have to record its traction data, no speed matching, no nothing. Record a speed data for that locomotive, and immediately it can be ran together with every other locomotive on my roster, and still every locomotive can have their individual driving characteristics. So in normal running I can set the switcher for a different driving characteristic than the mainline locomotive. Currently they are set to the same values, but I can very easily change them to different values, and I'm about to show that. So RailCom. Now, one thing RailCom can do is that the decoders can send back their identifiers through the detectors, and that way your CTC program or your automation software like iTrain or train controller is going to know exactly which decoders are in which detected sections. And it's not just the locomotives. I have passenger cars set up with ESU decoders, or there is my caboose set up with a decoder. They can relay their identifier as well. But the other big thing about RailCom is with CV programming. So when I want to program on the main, and except for those stubborn decoders that only let you program their addresses on the program track, I always program everything on the main. So this is the programmer screen of the Z21 software. If there is a locomotive on the program track, you can read its most important driving behaviors there, but it's going to be lengthy, you know. Even the first few CVs are going to take a minute. If you use JMRI to read every CV, especially of an ESU or címmel decoder with lots of CVs, it's going to take an hour. Now, here you can use program on main to read the values of all the important things. You know, this decoder was selected, this locomotive was selected by the picture, by its road number, and immediately I see every single important CV, and I can just reset the values. And as it darkens and reappears, it has immediately been set to that value. So I set it back to 200%. And reappearing means that I have restored the value. And I have several manual options. Now, my most important one is the program on main manual option. So for example, there is locomotive 11. And I'm interested in its CV29. You know, we are interested in that a lot of times. And it's set to 11. So here I can see that direction of travel is inversed. It has 28 or 128 driving stages in DCC. Analog operation is shut off, but RailCom is turned on. Okay, let's turn RailCom off. I just picked a bit and immediately my value is calculated. I set it, maybe set it again, and now you can see that the CV could not be read because now RailCom is deactivated. So I turn it back on, and now it can be read. So I go down here, pick number 11, and it takes like 2 seconds to read the most important driving behavior. If you're using JMRI, maybe it's going to take a minute to read 200 CVs. That's a great thing about RailCom. And what I also like about RailCom is that I can always turn it off and on with a very simple set to the CV29. And I usually turn it off for locomotives because sometimes locomotives that are not really prepared for RailCom are prone to just dash with high speed off the layout because of the RailCom cutoff they understand RailCom cutoff as a direct current. So I turn direct current off, RailCom off in all decoders normally, and turn the RailCom cutoff in the command station. But when I want to, I can turn it back on very quickly, and even if it's turned off, POM works, so I can turn it on, read the behavior, and immediately turn it off again. It's astonishing, and so much better than using the programming track for reading the state of any decoder. Another interesting thing you can do with the CV programming interface through RailCom is editing the speed curve. So we can pick various different speed curves for a locomotive, and those are immediately updated and checked using RailCom. But you can also set a more complicated speed curve for it using the higher CVs of the decoder, and you can freely set anything up, any crazy thing, and it's immediately updated and checked through RailCom. I don't really want to do that, so I'm going to return it to the state it had been before. So this is the speed curve. Setting it up is really just very, very simple. There's a feature that I unfortunately can't show you because what I'm doing is scale TT120, and the driver caps feature is only available for select AJO locomotives that Roco sells. These locomotives have a built-in camera, and when you click the driver's cab menu, you can download an appropriate internal view of the cab of those locomotives, and you're going to get a picture very similar to the one that you get in a train simulator. So all the controls are going to be laid out, the brake, the throttle, all those buttons for the horns, whistles, closing the doors, everything. And behind the windows you are going to see what is recorded by the camera and sent over to the Z21 application over Wi-Fi. So there's going to be a direct connection between the camera and the Z21 over Wi-Fi. And you can drive your train like if it was real. So prototypical scenery and prototypical signaling can become even more important, because that way you are going to be able to use your Model Railroad as an actual simulated environment. You can actually step into the cab of your locomotives and drive it through your tablet like if you were inside. There's no better immersion than that. So having a physical throttle is a good thing, and the proto throttle is definitely a good thing, but being inside the cab is another very interesting situation, and maybe the two things could be brought together so that you have a physical proto throttle like environment for controlling the speed of the train and other things, but you still see what is out there. And actually Roco sells an ICE high-speed multiple unit, the kind of train that actually toured the US, the Northeast Corridor and some other places, with diesel locomotive attached, that has the camera built in, and doesn't only have the capabilities to be connected to the driver cab, but it's also drivable over Wi-Fi. So there could be a direct Wi-Fi connection between your tablet and the Wi-Fi module in the ICE, and you can give out commands. So basically driver cab and wireless control. There's just one step to do. You can add the battery and you get power on board with everything. The system is here. The capabilities are built into this very software you see here. There's no need to research, there's no need to create anything new. Everything is available. I love the profiles, the layout management profiles of the Z21 application. So if I just go over to my friend who also owns a Z21 and want to drive the trains on his layout, I just take the layout in use and immediately I get to control all his vehicles. Everything is down here and his entire layout. You can see it's the roundy type, so it's very different from my point-to-point layout, but still it's a very nice one. And everything is here, and you can send this whole thing over the Wi-Fi to any other smart device which is connected to the same Wi-Fi that the Z21 has. So if you click this button, you can select from other devices available, or with the share button you can actually upload it to a Google Drive and make a QR code to link to it, or send it over email to someone. So what I do sometimes is that if there are friends coming over, I send them the current state of my layout in an email or over an instant messaging service in advance. So by the time they arrive, their smartphone is set up for my layout and is aware of all my vehicles, the recent changes to the track plan, how the CTC board has changed. So I've recently added the new town and that's reflected on the CTC panel. I really love this. This is so flawless, so 21st century, and it's readily available and free. Okay, so for staying with me for so long, I wanted to show you something nice. Here is an EMD locomotive in TT120. Speaking about the scale of 1 to 120, here's a little example why TT is a little bit more popular in Europe, and especially Eastern Europe, but also in the United Kingdom nowadays, than N-scale. So here's an Atlas N-scale railbox boxcar. As you can see, this 50-foot car is actually almost the size of this huge 6-axle freight locomotive. If I take my Rapido CP center beam car, well, the center beam car is actually longer than the diesel locomotive. So these models over here have about the same feel as an N-scale USA prototype. This Trainworks Norfolk Southern N-scale gondola is actually the same length in N-scale, in 1 to 160, as the length of my TT 1 to 120 gondola. The difference is in the heights. In Europe we have shorter and longer prototypes, but actually this one is going to be hauling coal that in the US hoppers are going to do. We don't really have many hoppers. There were a few types, but basically the need for hauling coal and iron ore has declined a lot in the past 30 years. So a mass manufacturing of hoppers suitable of doing that never happened, because we have older gondola type cars that are capable of doing that, and fulfilling every need that any company may have. But really, it's visible that an N-scale gondola is the same size as a TT scale, but of course the US and the European prototype. So with European prototypes, actually TT scale makes a lot of sense, because you have really prototypical turnouts, not in my track, but with a little bit of greater space. Or you can go with N scale to have absolutely tiny things, or HO scale is going to look very similar to what TT would look like with the US prototype. And S scale would be for the people who have a larger area available. And the European prototype S scale would not be so large. So this locomotive is about 2/3 the size of an SD40. And it's one of the largest locomotives that we have around here. Now for me and for almost every European prototype modeler, passenger trains are going to take the majority of the trains that you operate on your railroad, even though from a temporal point of view, I will spend about 50% of my time with passenger train operations, which are just getting out of staging, arriving at a station, stopping, exchanging passengers, and then leaving for the other staging yard. And freight trains, which I actually have to do a lot of switching, picking up and spotting cars at the spurs and other things. So for me, it's 50% freight train time, 50% passenger train time, but there are just 4 or 5 freight trains on my layout and almost 20 passenger trains in my current 6-hour long timetable. Now 6 hours is a model time. I use a 1 to 2 fast clock, and so many trains in a 6-hour long interval is a little dance for even a European prototype, at least a diesel, so non-electrified track, but it's not that much of an overkill. So it's alright. This is about the train frequency we have, and we have even better train frequency nowadays. This is about the train frequency we used to have in the 1980s. Of course, my layout models a very small railroad, and in real life this railroad would not have so much traffic. But I imagine that where I have this 2-track town, it's a bigger town with some further tracks, and my other town with 4 tracks is actually one with it's actually one that in real life would have 6, 7 or 8 tracks. So I imagine that it's a little bit upscaled in real life. I can't model everything. I'm very limited in space. I'm reduced to this very small bedroom. There are some other areas in my flat where I could have imagined the railroad, but really I just have to live somewhere. This is what I have as a space for my railroad. So passenger trains are important, and I can have passenger trains set up with interior lighting and figures sitting in there. And we like to have decoders built into all the passenger cars so that I can turn on individual sections of the passenger cars lighting, because these are not open plan, but cars with little boxes, and passengers in real life can actually control whether they have lighting or not. I emulate that. The strength of the lamps installed varies widely. Even nowadays, but especially in the 1980s that I model, it would have varied widely, and that's also shown here. And of course I spent some time painting the interior, placing figures in there, so a lot of detailing went into these passenger cars, and I really love how they turned out. And of course the train doesn't only have interior lighting, it has tail lights and they are direction dependent. So if I change the direction, these three cars are actually consisted together in my Z21 application. If I change the direction of travel, then the other side of this consist of cars is going to display the red lights. Just like that. Now it's showing it towards the locomotive, so it makes no sense, but it means that I can play together with this set, and when I run around with the locomotive, we don't do loops and triangles with passenger trains. We have seats faced in both directions. When I run around the locomotive, I actually can very quickly change the direction that the tail light is being shown. And it's not really a high illumination, a high brightness illumination I have here. In the 1980s, these trains had just a minuscule amount of lighting, both inside and outside, and I prototypically modeled that. A contemporary train would have very bright neon or LED lighting. That would be a completely different thing. I can set these ESU decoders to a higher brightness, and there are versions with colder LED lights. So you can find basically any kind of decoder that you're looking for. They can be cut to the length of your car, so I can fit this same lighting into just a 2-axle passenger car, or an even longer kind of intercity car, or whatever else I want to do. So here's the Z21 Maintenance Tool. I'm connected to the Wi-Fi of the Z21 system, and I can connect to it immediately, and it's recognized that it's a black Z21. I have the serial number, firmware version, type. I can see the voltage coming from the power supply, and the internal voltage. I can actually set the internal voltage that is being sent to the track from the Z21 application. So since TT is a smaller scale, I'm using 12 volt DCC instead of 16 volt, which is the default value. I can read the main track current. Now I have, I don't know, a dozen locomotives on the track and about 10 accessory decoders for turnouts and signals, and the signal lights are also running from the track current, and as you can see, that's 730 milliamps, so less than an amp. Everything is quite alright. Prog track current, well, it's fluctuating, but there's nothing there. So this is just a measurement error, and I can see the temperature of the H bridge, which is regulating the current going on from the Z21. I have a bunch of settings over here that I can do. I can set the main track voltage from here, just like I can do it from the smartphone application. It doesn't matter where I do it. There's a stop key feature, so in the application, if I hit the stop key, I can decide whether to have the track voltage off or just have all the locomotives emergency stop. Currently I have track voltage off option selected because I'm adding accessory decoders to the new town, later on to the new staging yard. So if there's a short, turn the track voltage off, obviously. Or I sense that I may do something that ends up in a short, I want to turn the track voltage off, turn it back on, and if it works, it's nice. If it doesn't work, it's automatically shut off. But an emergency stop is very clever. And actually you can set up your phone app so that if there's an incoming call or you switch to another application, hit an instant messenger service or something like that, it also emergency stops your layout. So you don't lose control because the Z21 application disappears from your screen. The Z21 is actually multi-protocol, so you can use the Merklin protocol as well. You can pick how to use the short DCC locomotive address, so it's 1 to 99 or 1 to 127. You can set the cutoff time for the short circuit detection on the main track, and on the bay bus, the booster bus of Roco. I have the programming track voltage set a little bit greater, it's 16 volts. There's some advanced settings over there. I can set up the inter-protocol settings of the Z21, so I can change the static IP address the Z21 has if I want to use it on a home network. Now, for security reasons, my Model Railroad network is completely separated from the internet, but if I wanted to connect to the router that I use for internet connections, a different subnet mask would be applied, and therefore I have to set up a different set of settings for the Z21. I can do it over here. Here's a LocoNet setup. I don't know anything about that because I don't own LocoNet devices, but the black Z21 is completely LocoNet compatible. It has a LocoNet out connection on the back side, but it's only LocoNet throttle, LocoNet T, not LocoNet B, so you can't use LocoNet boosters, only LocoNet throttles. The CAN bus is used for the kinds of feedback or detection devices that can use RailCom, so read back the identifier of the decoders from the track, and also you can connect boosters through the CAN bus, and this way you can have the boosters operate at a voltage that you set from your maintenance tool or application. So that means that your entire track is going to operate on the same voltage. Multimouse is the wired T3rd throttle, and you can update the firmware from here. That's not really important. You can update the firmware of the Z21 as well. Here's the decoder updater, where you can open a new sound project. This is for my bar.ca, the 751 that I recently updated, and if I place it on a programming track, this whole thing is going to be uploaded into the decoder, and I can do CV programming there. So I can select like it's a POM loco decoder, loco address 11. I know that it's good for CV for RailCom CV reading. It's not. Why isn't it? CV29. So CV programming is, you can use direct mode programming on the programming track, or you can use program on main and read values using RailCom. Now locomotive 15 is still on the main track, and I know that CV29 is CV29 is set in a way that you can use RailCom for that. So this is reading it in its entirety. And if I want to turn RailCom off, I can just click here and write it. So now reading is impossible. Turning it back on, and now I can read it. The maintenance tool also has a built-in throttle, built-in fast clock, a built-in signal box. You can use the DCC X switch and signal commands. You can use the RailCom monitor, so now device address 18, address 7 is responding. Here is address 15, which is locomotives, so it's at speed 1, which is like 0. And here are my detectors. So as you can see, these are the occupied track sections, module by module on the R bus. I don't have any CAN bus or LocoNet detectors, so that's empty. So it's a really neat program, and again, it's free. So as you can see, I don't have my HST on my smartphone, but I do have it on the tablet, so I can just export it, and since we are on the same Wi-Fi, it usually needs more than one tries. I can transfer that vehicle, and now it's present. It's present on the top, so I just have to move it down to its correct location. I seldom use it, so it's supposed to be at the bottom. And here we go. I already have the HST on my smartphone. And all the functions I have set on my tablet are immediately available on my smartphone over here. Why do I own an HST, you may ask? Now, the case is that it definitely doesn't fit into my layout. It fits the era, so I have the late 1970s, early 1980s livery for my Intercity 125, but how would it get to the Czechoslovakian-Hungarian border? Well, it couldn't. The whole thing is just sentimental. All throughout my childhood, I was lucky enough to receive a lot of books about trains. And almost all of them had one or multiple chapters about HSTs, British trains in general, but HSTs, since they were the most important ones in the era that I was a child, always played a prominent role in these books. So here you can see the London Paddington, the Penzance track, at the Dowley Seawall, and lots of HST pictures. I was infatuated with HSTs, and I knew that I will never be able to get one. First of all, because I didn't ever have the room to model in HO scale, and of course the British model makers and Italian Lima and other companies built HSTs in HO scale. But neither in my childhood nor nowadays, I don't really have the room for HO scale. And normally I'm perfectly content with TT. Actually, I prefer it to HO, because I can do prototypical curves. The cars don't slack into the curves. Some of the round around the European layouts in HO look horrendous to me, because their curvatures with respect to the long passenger cars that they run just looks toy train like, nothing prototypical, and I don't like that. And then suddenly Hornby jumps into the TT scale in 2023, and they announced that they're going to make an HST among other British vehicles that I'm also intrigued by, but the HST is like iconic, and I knew that I would just have to have an HST for myself. And luckily, at the 2-year anniversary in November last year, they announced a 40% sale for everything TT120. So I managed to get this almost complete set. I could have got the complete one, but even this doesn't really fit on my layout, so I just put it on the track very rarely to be able to admire it. And this is a perfect and lovely train. You see, it doesn't make any sense, but it's my childhood dream come true. TT120 HST on my layout in beautiful British Rail blue and yellow livery. Okay, so much about sentimentalism, but it's important from the point of view of this video as well, because the locomotives of this train set are equipped with the Hornby HM7000 decoders, which allow a direct connection to a smartphone over Bluetooth, but at the same time they can be set up to operate through DCC. So I can use my Z21 to operate this train, or I can use the Bluetooth connection to operate this train, or set up the CVs and everything else. Now, it's almost the same thing as the Blunami decoder. The only difference is that even though I don't own a Blunami and I have never had a look at, yet alone being able to operate a Blunami using the Blunami application, this whole HM7000 thing looks a lot more sophisticated than the Blunami one. And actually, Hornby is making a huge deal about this. So TT120 as an introductory scale is very closely linked with the HM7000. All sound-equipped locomotives are sold with an HM7000 decoder. So they're aiming at new people getting into the hobby. In the UK there is a severe shortage of homes and people are getting into smaller and smaller places to live, which is very sad. But the TT scale can accommodate for smaller locations, and actually many hundreds of people have joined the hobby, the greatest hobby in the world, with Hornby TT120, because previously they couldn't have fit an HO scale layout into their homes. And N scale is just very fiddly, so that's not going to work. And you know, it's Europe, and the UK trains are the smallest in all Europe, so even smaller than my Czechoslovakian Hungarian prototype. So TT is like the perfect scale for the current UK train enthusiast to join modern railways as a hobby, and maybe we'll do that. So let's have a look at what the HM7000 can do. So here is what my beautiful HST looks like. It's not the entire train set, but quite a few cars. Two second class passenger cars, a first class, a restaurant, and a second class guards van. So this is how the train can operate from any DCC system. I have the lights turned on, I change the direction of travel, and the taillights come on. Now I have the white headlights on the other end of the train. Change the direction of travel, it switches to the other direction. So we have two decoders on both on the two ends of the train, both HM7000, and actually they are both programmed to address 19 on my DCC system. One of the locomotives is a dummy, this one actually. So it doesn't have a motor, but it has a sound decoder, a speaker, tail and headlights, everything. So it acts like a real Class 43 train set. Now let's see the HST arrive on my temporary staging with DCC control. Both the actual locomotive and the dummy are producing sound. Dummy is on the front of the train. And as you can see, on HST43063, DCC mode is enabled, so I have to turn it back into Bluetooth mode. And in a dummy, it's also in DCC mode, obviously, so I have to turn it back to Bluetooth mode. And now, both of the locomotives are connected. So you can see two connected devices to the Bluetooth of my smartphone. So I can set the speed, direction of travel, braking, stopping. I have a very similar layout for the various functions as in the Z21 app. Horns too is like really fancy horns. I don't know if they are doing that in real life, but here they are available. Page 2, page 3, and I don't have to set it up as opposed to the Z21 because the entire profile is downloaded from the internet. So the HST profiles are available, and when I download the sound project and upload it from my phone onto the HST decoder, I also get all these pages of various controls like creep mode, driver buzzer, windscreen wipers, cab warning bell, guards whistle. Everything is there, and it's like just a tap on my phone. I took a picture of my train. That's how I can select between them. If you go to the settings, you could rewrite the DCC address over Bluetooth. So next time I turn my Z21 app on, it could have a different address. Acceleration and deceleration, like they are the CV values. Sound settings, I can import a function map from the internet, browse profiles. If I wanted to, I could download the steam locomotives profile. I have to go onto the internet. I could download Mallard, the world record holder steam locomotive, onto this decoder, or a Flirt, or whatever I wanted to. So currently it has the original prime movers, the Valenta prime movers, but I could replace that with an MTU prime mover, the newer version, the Flying Scotsman, Duke of Gloucester. Everything is available here. Just tap on it, download it on the smart device, and then upload it onto the locomotive. Here I have lots of information available, like the version info, Bluetooth version, everything. I can update the device. It's currently up to date, but later on I can update it, unassign it from this device and assign it to another smart device. Everything is available. I don't have accessory devices, but the HM7000 app actually allows me to do that. I could import layouts, so very similar to how the Z21 works, but everything over Bluetooth. And I have lots of settings available as well. And if I come here to the actual locomotive, I can have a look at the functions, and there's the advanced CV editor. All the CVs that this DCC Bluetooth shared decoder has are editable on my smartphone over here, and there are comprehensive descriptions of what each and every CV does. This is the future of modern railroading. It really is. DCC with plain words and no codes, no CV numbers, no addresses, everything is over here. Just look how many CVs we have over here. It's a great stuff. Okay, yeah, the Bluetooth device is set up in the opposite direction as my DCC device is. Still it works. So let's bring the train on. Thank you for watching. Now, I believe, and this is debatable, so you can call me out on this, but I believe that the future of modern railroading is American-style operations with either car cards and waybills or switch lists and whatever railroad code you have out there, track warrant control, timetable and train order operations, whatever, combined with European DCC and Bluetooth and all these cutting-edge technologies. Now, what I've showed you is something very different. The CS105 is a great new command station, but it lacks some of the functionality that I've shown you here. But also, it is looking in the future with LCC and a number of other things far further in the future than Roco does. Like the Z21 is 10 years old, and that's not contemporary, but it's still something you should be having a look at, and something that the CS105 should mimic. I mean, it lacks so many of the features of the Roco Z21. It's unbelievable. And Digitrax and NC, they're like 30 years old. You shouldn't be buying that, really. I mean, that's not how things work nowadays. This thing that I have around here is in a great amount software, and setting up software is extremely simple, either through Bluetooth or through an app, or setting up these Servo decoders through Bluetooth or whatever else, through Wi-Fi, through the buttons even. It's a lot simpler than whatever you are doing nowadays. And the costs, like, I operate 2 or 3 turnouts for the same cost that you buy a tortoise switch machine for. Tortoise switch machines in the 1980s. There's no reason to have them. They are expensive, loud, unadjustable, difficult to work with because you have to solder to them or buy additional connectors to them, and servos have standardized connectors. This is the way to go. I believe that every modeler should be using future-proof technologies. So when you are starting over, building a new layout, or a new person getting into the hobby is asking for advice how to start, what to do with their enthusiasm in modern railroading, they should start with the cutting-edge technology of that day. So please don't tell people to buy an NC power cab or use tortoise switch machines or whatever else. That's not the way to go. This is the way to go, in a way. But of course, you can differ, and I'm waiting for your comments just below the video. Unfortunately, most of my channel is in Hungarian. I'm not sure how good a job YouTube is doing in translating that video, the audio channel of those videos. If you're interested, please have a look at them. You can also follow my channel. But the most important thing is that I made this video to show you how things can be done in different ways than what you're used to. And these ways are meaningful, and you mustn't dismiss these ways. Thank you for watching.